Get ready, Staten Island.
The Ferry Hawks are back at SIUH Community Park July 7th to the 12th for a 6-game series against the High Point Rockers. Tonight, first pitch is at 6:30. It's Thirsty Thursday with $5 Bud and Bud Light Drafts. Friday, July 10th, first pitch is at 7 p.m. May the Force be with you on Star Wars Night with post-game kids glow around the bases with special lightsaber training packs.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
Sunday morning. Well, what is going on with China? What is going on with the Pacific? With us today is Gordon Chang, and he is a good friend, an expert on what's going on in the Far East, and a fellow at the Gatestone Institute. And Gordon, give us an update. What the heck is going on?
The most important event this week was the China firing an intercontinental ballistic missile, either a JL-2 or a JL-3. They did this on Monday. It traveled across what's known as the first and second island chains, landed near Fiji. That's important because just within hours of the launch, Australia and Fiji signed a landmark defense agreement that the Chinese did not like. As people in the region said, this was the most provocative flight path the Chinese could have chosen. They gave very little notice, and they angered a lot of countries that once were their friends in the region. And by the way, this is a nuclear-capable missile, and it splashed down in the South Pacific nuclear-free zone, which is something that has gotten a lot of people's attention as well.
But China knows if they fire a missile that goes off, then it's World War III.
They do, but Xi Jinping right now is very arrogant. He doesn't respect the United States. He thinks we're in terminal decline. I believe that he's certainly wrong. I think a lot of Chinese officials think he's wrong, but he's the guy who is the most powerful in the regime right now. Also, he might be getting a little bit desperate. He has a Chinese economy that is not growing at the 5.0% pace that they reported for the first quarter of this year. It's probably not growing at all. We are seeing some very distressing signs out of China, and I'm sure that must be weighing on Xi Jinping because he's probably looking at a closing window of opportunity. And if that's the case, he can take us by surprise.
Understood what you're saying. Now, give us your pulse of, are they supporting some of the stupidity that Iran is doing, or what's your pulse of that situation?
During the war, China was certainly supplying Iran with everything that it needed except for combat personnel. So, for instance, they were supplying targeting data through their satellites, and that targeting data was almost certainly used to kill 6 Americans on March 1st. Through the war, we saw these Chinese military cargo planes land in Iran, and the missiles that Iran was firing, including the ones firing at our Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, those were Chinese missiles, CM-302s. So China was all in. Since the last ceasefire, what we have been seeing is China pretty much on the sidelines. It has been urging both sides to adhere to the ceasefire. But that only helps Iran. So clearly Beijing is still on Tehran's side.
Understood. Are they getting all the supplies they need?
The Iranians are getting a lot. Now, President Trump, a couple days ago, he bombed a rail bridge in northern Iran. This was a rail line that connected Iran with Pakistan and China, as well as with Russia. This is important because although the amount of oil that was being transported over the rail lines is not nearly as substantial as that went through the Strait of Hormuz, it still is enough to make a difference. And it was really good for President Trump to make that statement because what he was doing was he was telling the Chinese that they were not going to get Iranian oil. And that's important because Beijing was thinking it could get everything it wanted and still try to prolong this war. I think that maybe Beijing right now has a different attitude.
Gotcha. Russia's relationship with China, do they still distrust each other a little bit?
Well, they've always distrusted each other, but they've been very close partners. And this past week, we learned how close, where apparently the Chinese and the Russians were testing weapons, Chinese weapons that were using Ukraine as a battlefield. So that's been a close relationship. And again, China's been supplying everything Russia needs except combat personnel. But we also got to remember that there are Chinese mercenaries fighting for Russia in Ukraine, and those mercenaries could not have left China without the approval at the highest levels of the regime. And also, there are People's Liberation Army officers at the front in Ukraine. We assume that they're observers. They could also maybe be providing advice. But this is a very deep relationship.
Well, we covered China, we covered Russia. Is North Korea relevant at all?
North Korea is relevant because, first of all, the North Koreans are supplying ballistic missiles, artillery shells, and soldiers to the Russians for the fight in Ukraine. And the last couple days, Kim Jong-un, the ruler, has been talking about accelerating and building up the North Korean arsenal, something which has been a constant theme. And so North Korea is certainly a factor. It is they have just launched their new destroyer. It's only one, but it does complicate our defense planning. And so North Korea is a threat. We know it's close to both Beijing and Moscow. And if there is war in East Asia, we have to assume that the Russians and the North Koreans will be supporting and fighting alongside the Chinese.
Anything else you want to tell all the American people on a Sunday morning?
Yeah. In June, in early June, China started patrols east of Taiwan in the Pacific Ocean. And as a part of those patrols, Beijing has been issuing propaganda and essentially laying a sovereignty claim to waters of the Pacific Ocean. So it's not just the South China Sea anymore. China has continued those patrols to this day, which means that they're trying to close off the global commons. This is what Iran is trying to do in the Strait of Hormuz. The Chinese are now deciding that they can actually make a bigger claim. And in the last couple days, Beijing has been laying the legal groundwork for a claim of islands of the Philippines that are close to Taiwan. This is China enlarging its ambitions, and it's dangerous because at some point we're going to have to stop them. If we don't stop them, they're going to be claiming waters just off of Hawaii, and there's no telling where the Chinese will go. Got to remember, Xi Jinping has pushed the imperial-era notion that China is the world's only sovereign state, which means the United States, at best, in Xi Jinping's view, is a colony. So we are not a sovereign state in Xi Jinping's notion of the world. And we know that this is ludicrous, but just because it's ludicrous, it doesn't mean that Xi Jinping isn't serious. I think he's really serious, and we can see by his expanding ambitions that he does intend to take over more of the world. I talk about these developments as they occur on X at Gordon G. Chang, GordonGchang, and I archive my articles for free on my website, which is at GordonChang.com.
Well, Gordon Chang, thank you for filling in all our listeners, and let's catch up again soon.
Thank you so much, John.